All right, so now let's talk about a very important concept in CSS, and that is the box model. This concept of the box model where every element is a box that has certain properties. So if we go to our web page and let's just open up a new tab and let's look up CSS box model. CSS box model. Every HTML element is a box and it has certain properties that you can target in CSS, and it's called the box model. So look up CSS box model and press enter, and let's go to this W3 Schools link here. So you see, this is it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you know, when we had our P tag, right? Remember, you have the opening tag and the closing tag, and the content goes between the opening and closing. This is the content right here. This is that content. And according to the box model, outside of the content, you have a padding. And then outside of the padding, you have a border. And then outside of that, you have the margin. So what does all this mean, right? So come down here. This is the explanation of the different parts. The content of the box is where the text and images appear, right? Remember, inside of the opening and closing tags. The padding is the area around the content, and it is transparent. The padding is transparent. It's just the area around the content. The border is a border that goes around the padding and content. So all this like this green one, this is the border. And then the margin, it clears an area outside of the border. The margin is transparent. The box model allows us to add a border around elements and to define space between the elements. So here, this is an example of using the box model, right? So when you have this property border and you have the padding and you have margin, and I'm gonna walk through this with you. So let's see. Now, I'm sure that this is a bit different from what you've seen before in terms of just typically, like you just write one like value for a CSS property, like width, boom. But here you have three different values here. So let's go look at how this border actually works. So we can open up a new tab and type CSS border property and press enter. And let's go into this W3 Schools link. And basically the border property is a shorthand property for the border width, the border style, which is required, and the border color. So that's what these three values stand for. The first value stands for the border width. Basically, how thick do we want this border to be? And the second value stands for the border style, right? And let's click on that actually. So let's go to the style. I'm gonna click on this style, and that should basically, you know, show us different styles that we can do, right? So you see dotted, solid, double, dash, etc. Like these are all different values that like you can use when it comes to the border style. All right, so you have solid, dotted, double, etc. And this is stuff that we'll play with. And then let's go back. So press back to where we were before when we were looking at CSS border property. And the third value is the border color. The border color. The border color. So basically, anywhere you see like a border property and you see these three values, you know, okay, that this first one is basically how thick do we want this border to be? What is the width of the border? And then the second value is what style is our border in? Do we want a solid border, a dotted, etc.? And then what color do we want the border to be? So let's go try this on one of our elements actually. So let's do it on this P tag here, the one with the ID big text. All right, the one with the ID big text. So if remember, we only want to target this third P element. How do we do that? By using the ID attribute. So basically now we can come inside of this ID attribute and we can add more CSS rules and more properties that we want to apply to the element that has this ID attribute. Right, so we want to add a border to this third P tag, and we can target this third P tag by using its ID attribute. So we can add more properties to this ID attribute. All right, so let's come here and let's do border. And how thick do we want the border to be? Let's just do 10 pixels. So that's pixels is going to be, you know, like the measurement of size, and is in px. So you can play around with this to kind of see, okay, this is what 5 pixels looks like. This is what 10 looks like. This is what 50 looks like. Just kind of play around with different values to, you know, help you to see how that changes. Okay. All right. So the first value when you're working with the border is the border width. We have defined ours as 10 pixels. And next is the border style. So let's just do solid. And then next, what color do we want this border to be? Let's do blue, right? So blue, and then semicolon. So you can write more than one CSS rule for an attribute that you are targeting. So now this ID attribute, it has 2 CSS rules in it. So this CSS is basically saying find the element that has the ID attribute big text. Boom. This is this p tag. Set the font size to 40 pixels, and then set the border to this. So let's go see how that looks now, right? So let's go back to our web page and let's refresh, and boom, you see that? Remember, according to the box model, every HTML element is a box that has a border, a margin, and padding, and those are properties that you can manipulate. So that's what I'm gonna walk you through now. If you're watching this video, that means you're interested in learning to code and making a career switch to becoming a software engineer. And that's exactly what I did. My name is TJ Oyeniyi, and I'm a self-taught software engineer that still works as a software engineer, while teaching complete beginners like yourself how to code and help them to get jobs as software engineers by working with them as their mentor. To learn more about working with me as your mentor, check out my coding bootcamp, Roots Technology. I'll put the link in the description below as well. So we just started playing around with the border property now, right? Because if we go back here, this is the border that we just wrote a CSS rule for. This is the border. So here, let me change that solid to dotted. You know, I've actually never done dotted, so let's see what this looks like dotted when we change this to dotted and refresh. Interesting. All right, so I'm gonna change it back to solid. I like that better. So solid, refresh. All right, so that is the border property. Up next, let's see what else we can play with. The padding, right? So padding, remember, padding is the area around the content. The padding is transparent. So you can basically increase or decrease the area around the content. So you see in this example, they are using pixels to set the value of the padding. So this is our content, right? This is my third p tag. That is the content inside of the opening and closing p tag. The padding is the space around it. So let's see what our p tag is going to look like once we increase the padding. So let's increase the padding to see what change that actually puts on here. So let's go back to our CSS. And remember, the CSS rules we're writing, we want to target this third p tag. So we have to write it all inside of the ID attribute big text. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write padding. And let's just do 30 pixels and let's see what that looks like. Let's just see what that looks like just to kind of have a base to go from. So I added a padding of 30 pixels to this ID attribute, big text, and this ID attribute is on this third p tag. So when I come here and I refresh, but I haven't refreshed yet. So just keep your eye on this. This is my third p tag. And then when I refresh, let's see what happens. Boom, you see that? Do you see how that space increased? Right, let me change this from 30 to 50. You know, so I basically increased it again. So this space around this content, this text should get bigger. So if I refresh and boom, you see that? Feel free to play with this on your own, but I think now this picture should be making a bit more sense to you, right? Like when you have your content and the space around the content is the padding, you know, like the padding, and the padding is inside of the border. And now margin, so margin is really important. This is the area outside of the border. The margin is the area outside of the border. What does that mean? If we go back here, so you see how this is my third P tag, literally. So this is my third P tag. The space between this P tag and this second P tag, this space right here, this is called the margin. So if I want to move this P tag further away from this second one, if I want to move this third, you see this box, this blue box, this third box, if I want to move this box further away from this second P tag, I can use the margin to move it away. Because remember, the margin is the space around the outside, around the border, the space outside of the border of that element. So, and again, we use pixels. We use pixels here. So let me go in here and let me increase this margin. And I'm just gonna do 20 pixels just so we can have a base to go from. So I put a margin of 20 pixels there. And let's go back here and let's refresh, and just keep your eye on this space over here, okay? And to see how much this increases. Or sorry, decreases. So if I come here and I change this to 200 pixels, let's see how this actually increases now. You see that? So that now increases that space by 200 pixels. So this is now further, so this P tag is now further away from this element here, from this second P tag. That is the margin. If you're learning a lot in this video, keep in mind, this is what learning to code with me as your mentor is like. Anytime you get stuck and you need help, you can schedule a Zoom call with me where we work one-on-one together on an issue like this, or you can just email me and I'll get back to you that way. But having a mentor there to guide you and ask questions to is the best way to speed up your coding journey so that you're not wasting time being stuck or working on things that don't matter. So if you're ready to start your coding journey and become a software engineer, come join me in my coding bootcamp at www.rootstechnology.info. All right, so something that we have to, here, let me see if this page actually addresses this here. Oh, it doesn't, but let me go look at the CSS margin property. CSS margin property. Let's look that up real quick. Boom. This is what I wanted to kind of show you. So here, you can actually target a specific side of the margin. Let's say that you only wanted to target the space on the top. You can do margin top. Let's say you only wanted to target the space on the bottom, margin bottom. Let's say you wanted to move it, boom, this way, you can do margin left, margin on the left side, and you can increase that. So here, let's play with that actually. So let me go back. I'm just gonna remove this and let's refresh, boom. So let's say that we want to increase the space on this left side, right? This is the left side of our P tag. So you see our P tag, so the left side outside of the border, because inside of the border is the padding, and the padding has the same thing. You can do padding top, padding bottom, padding left, padding right. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to do that with the margin, but keep in mind the same concept that applies with the margin applies with the padding, okay? In terms of you being able to target each specific side of it, all right? And the same thing with border top, border bottom, border right, border left, all right? So let's say that we want to target this left side. This is the left side. We want to increase the space on the left side. This would be margin left, all right? Margin left. This is we want to increase that space. So let's do, it's gonna be margin hyphen. So you see here, I mean, even my text editor is like already kind of giving me clues here. So margin left, colon, and we want to, let's set that to 50 pixels just to see what that looks like. Margin left. So the expectation is once I refresh, this box should move right? Because I'm increasing the space on the left, so it should move to the right. I'm increasing the space on the left, so it should move to the right. So when I refresh, you see that? Here, let me increase this to 80 pixels. It should go further right because I am increasing this space here. Boom. Let me just put this to 180. Let's just be a bit extreme. to 180 and refresh. All right, so that should make sense. Now here, let's just do padding top just to, I said padding top. Let's just do margin top just to show you how that works too. Margin top, colon, let's do 200 pixels. Let's come here. So that should push this box down, right? Because we are increasing the space on the top. So if I refresh, boom, you see that? You see how it pushed it down? So you have margin top, margin left, margin right, and margin bottom. Those are all different properties that you can target in CSS because of the box model. Every element is a box that has a margin and a padding that you can manipulate, and a border, and a border, and a border. All right, and a border. All right, so let me CSS padding. This is something that you should also look up as well. Like, just make sure that you have these pulled up so that you can actually look at what these properties are and just play around with these properties on your own, and also kind of like read through this and play around with these exercises. You see these examples, just click try it yourself here and change these values and then hit run, right? If I do padding top and I change this to 150, right? And I hit run, it should increase this, right? That's a pattern. Hit run, boom. You see that? So play around with these examples to help you to just better understand what's going on here, all right? Let me tell you how learning to code changed my life. I went from making $37,000 a year and living paycheck to paycheck to my first job as a software engineer paid me $75,000 a year. That's almost double what I was making before. So now I don't have to fly Spirit Airlines all the time anymore, and I can actually afford a real vacation. And since I change jobs every 1 to 2 years, I started making 6 figures my 3rd year as a software engineer. That's what this career change can do for you. Now I have the skills to learn anything technical and get a job in a lot of different roles and industries because of my technical skills. So don't waste time putting off learning to code if you know you're interested in making a career change. Get started now so you can be ready to start applying to jobs soon. Come learn to code with me as your mentor at rootstechnology.info.